For many people, it's surprising to learn how dependent the system is on just this one area. But this didn't happen by accident. It developed over time because of geography, shipping technology, and global trade patterns. To understand this, we need to look at how global shipping actually works. Most manufactured goods coming into the U.S. from Asia travel across the Pacific Ocean. And here's the key point. The shortest and most efficient shipping routes from East Asia naturally lead to the west coast of the United States. That puts California in a very direct position on global trade routes. Ships don't choose routes randomly. They follow cost, distance, fuel efficiency, and time. And when billions of dollars of goods are being moved, even small differences matter a lot. So over time, California became a natural landing point for large-scale imports. The rise of massive container ships. Now let's talk about modern cargo ships. Today's container ships are enormous. Some can carry more than 20,000 containers at once. They were designed to move huge amounts of goods as efficiently as possible across oceans. But there is a limitation. Many of these megaships cannot pass through the Panama Canal, not because of rules or restrictions, but because of physical size. Even after expansions, the canal still cannot handle the largest ships in global trade today. So these ships mostly travel across the Pacific and dock on the West Coast. That reinforces the importance of California ports even more. The connection to the rest of the country. Landing goods in California is only part of the system. What makes it powerful is what happens next. Once containers arrive at the ports of Los Angeles or Long Beach, they don't stay there. They are quickly moved inland using one of the largest freight rail networks in the United States. These rail lines connect California directly to major cities like Chicago and beyond. This creates a fast distribution pathway that spreads goods across the country in a relatively short time. So California is not just an entry point. It is a launch point into the rest of the United States. A system built for speed and scale. When you look at the full picture, three things come together. Shortest shipping routes from Asia. Massive container ships designed for efficiency. A strong rail network connecting inland America. All of these factors align in one region. That combination creates a system where California becomes the most efficient entry point for a large portion of imports. And once systems like this are built, they tend to reinforce themselves over time, because businesses, infrastructure, and investment all grow around them. What happens when the system slows down? This system works extremely well most of the time, and that is exactly why modern global trade has become so fast and reliable. But it also shows how sensitive global logistics can be when even one part of the chain slows down. For example, during the supply chain disruptions in 2021, something unusual happened. It wasn't a single failure, but a buildup of pressure across the system. Global demand had increased quickly, especially as people spent more on physical goods during the pandemic period. Cargo ships began waiting offshore for long periods instead of unloading as expected. In some cases, they had already traveled thousands of miles, only to stop just outside the port. At one point, dozens of ships were stuck near the California coast, unable to unload their containers. This created a kind of traffic jam on the water. The problem didn't end there. Once ships could not unload, containers could not move into trucks or warehouses. And once warehouses became full, the entire flow slowed even more. What made this situation important is how quickly it spread. A delay at the port did not stay local. It moved through the entire supply chain, affecting factories, retailers, and transportation networks across the country. In simple terms, when one key part of the system slows down, everything connected to it can also feel the impact within days or weeks. How a local delay became a national issue. The problem didn't stay at the ports. It spread quickly. Warehouses filled up. Trucks faced delays. Retailers struggled to restock goods. And in some cases, factories in other states had to slow down production because they were missing parts. Even though the issue started at two ports, the impact reached across the entire country. This shows how interconnected modern supply chains are. A delay in one location can affect many industries at once. Why this system is so hard to replace? A natural question is, why not just build more ports elsewhere? In theory, that sounds simple. But in practice, it is very difficult. The reasons are structural. Shipping routes across the Pacific still end in the West Coast. The largest ships still cannot use alternative canals efficiently. Rail and logistics networks are already built around California. Changing this system would take decades, enormous investment, and global coordination. And even then, geography would still matter, because oceans, distances, and trade routes do not change easily. Did you ever think about how your online orders travel before reaching your door? Most people don't see this system, but it affects almost everything we buy. A quiet system that affects daily life. What makes this topic interesting is how invisible it is. Most people never think about ports, ships, or rail networks when they shop online or buy products in stores. But these systems quietly support modern life. They help determine how fast products arrive, how much things cost, how stable supply is in stores. When everything works smoothly, we don't notice it. But when there are delays, the effects become visible very quickly. Not a weakness, but a trade-off. It's important to stay balanced here. This system is not broken. In fact, it is one of the most efficient logistics networks in the world. But like any system, it has trade-offs. Centralization makes it fast and efficient, but also more sensitive to disruption. Decentralization makes systems more stable, but often slower and more expensive. So the current setup reflects a balance between speed and efficiency. The bigger lesson. There is a bigger idea behind all of this. Modern economies are deeply connected systems. They are shaped by geography, infrastructure, and long-term decisions. Once these systems are built, they tend to persist for decades, and even small parts of them can influence global outcomes. That is why understanding logistics is important, because it explains many everyday things we often take for granted. Final thoughts. So when you look at a product on a shelf or receive an online order, it's easy to think only about the store or the delivery service. But behind that moment is a global system. And in many cases, that system passes through two key ports on the California coast, not because of coincidence, but because of geography, efficiency, and decades of global trade development. Understanding this helps us see how connected the world really is. If you found this explanation helpful, you might also like our next video, where we break down how global supply chains actually work step by step. And if you enjoy simple explanations like this, consider liking the video and subscribing for more. See you in the next one.